Coming up next, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about programmatic specifically, which is, as we all know, the nuts and bolts of how these transactions are done. We talked a lot about the TV side, the addressability side, the data side, but not so much about programmatic. And so I want to invite up a very good friend and a great host for today, for this session, Miss Mollie Garza, who runs MJGrowth. She's going to come up and introduce the rest of the panelists. Come on up, Mollie. And I don't think I need the clicker. Yeah, please.
Cool.
The chairs are right. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Good to see you. Come on, guys.
Here, you go sit next to her.
And I brought my boss because boss marketing team
Thanks.
works with me. Cool. Thanks, guys. Well, we are here with a great line of experts, and according to LinkedIn, they are super, super popular. And so I'm excited to introduce the panel topic, which is how are we looking at blind spots in measuring streaming video in programmatic? And we couldn't have a better lineup here. And so if you guys could introduce yourselves, name, title, company.
Thanks, Mollie. So I'm David Nyurenberg. I'm the SVP of Digital for InterMedia Advertising, and we are a 50-year-old TV agency.
Hi, Peter Parisi. I'm a VP that oversees a lot of video investment over at KINESSO.
Hey guys, Mario Diez. I run a company called Pier 39. Work probably with most everybody in the room, helping people find the CTV inventory they want in a brand safe and friendly environment.
Wonderful. So we are talking about the blind spots, and from this panel, we're going to talk about the media perspective from the buyer's point of view, and we're going to get into the weeds and the layers from a technological standpoint. So if you are a media buyer, if you could just kind of think about your influence and leadership in your roles to kind of, look at this and say, how can I actively solve a problem to fuel growth in this area? With that, what we know is that the market's predicting a $50 billion industry within the next 5 years, yet we still have blind spots. So I want the panelists to share what you guys think is the biggest blind spot and area that we need to solve for.
Yeah, no, it's a $50 billion channel with some of the most minimal transparency of all digital channels available, which is a real shame because linear forever has been a show level based buying channel. You would buy the content. Meanwhile, on the CTV side, the whole narrative has been flipped, and what you're essentially buying is very non-transparent, commoditized inventory packages, paying top dollar while not really knowing what exactly you're getting, which is a big frustration in the space.
Yeah, and just adding on to that, it is you're buying essentially app inventory that's packaged together. You don't know if you're getting fast inventory. You don't know if you're getting like the direct-to-consumer app inventory, the pluses, or if you're getting the TV everywhere inventory. You're not always sure what exact programs you're getting when you're buying. That's probably the biggest blind spot when it comes to what we're actually seeing when we activate addressably.
Yeah, one of the important things is, I say this a lot internally, I think there's two different CTV markets. There's the upfront market, which is reserved for the top streamers and the maybe the top 500 advertisers. A lot of those types of investments and transactions still carry with it a lot of the transparency, like you share your do not air list or what programs you want to buy, and that's very controlled. I think what's happening and what we're seeing is you have the scatter market, the spot market, the programmatic market. And in that side, you have performance advertisers, you have new advertisers coming in. And what's happening in there is there's a strong desire for the same level of advertiser confidence that advertisers have when buying linear. And those spots don't exist. And some of it's business challenges, some of it's technical challenges. But it's important to understand those two dynamics because some of the stuff that you invest in upfront, you get what you get what you get. But when we're doing performance stuff like David and I do a lot, there's a lot of challenges in that environment.
Yeah, performance is only as good as the optimization levers you have to pull. So with linear, you can tie back performance to specific shows, optimize it to specific channels, networks, based on what your performance readouts are telling you. On CTV, you're stuck buying at a network level. If it doesn't perform, then your next option is just to pull budget and optimize out, versus knowing what shows, what specific apps, fast versus whether you're on the primary network app, are performing, and then pushing budget where it does perform and pulling it out where it doesn't in a more granular fashion. The frustrating thing as a performance advertiser is I want CTV to reach its full potential, but I can't do that unless I know what I'm buying and what's performing and what's not performing. And currently, it's a very murky picture.
To that point, reporting. So if you don't know what you're buying and you don't know where you're buying, I've looked at a few reports. There's discrepancies or just little to no information. Can we talk about just, if we fast forward to media buying, you look at reporting and that's supposed to signify, right, and give you some directional order of where to invest. Where can we remedy reporting?
Right. So we have a slide, progress is being made on the reporting front with more and more publishers and entities starting to pass back some level of signal. It's going to be the next.
The other one.
Be the next slide.
There you go.
Yeah. So like at a base level, more and more are passing back network channel, right? So at least you know that. Some are passing back show level, but largely 95% of impressions do not have a show against it. When you do get the full chain of data, though, you're able to tie back conversions to exactly what's working versus what's not. You're able to build algorithms that actually prioritize performance and then push spend into the channels and the shows that do perform. But when there's such a big gap, there's really not much data to optimize off of. So this is really what the current picture of the landscape looks like. A lot of black holes, some sub-level of signal, but not nearly enough to actually do a strong performance type buy.
Yeah, and I would say, we've definitely seen like advancements. So from media perspective, right? Like this is probably the most robust you're gonna get. You're gonna get some, app level, maybe down to some program. It might show up as site in this, but when you start going beyond like media level reporting, what we are seeing is through third-party measurement companies, we can get an assessment of how are certain apps doing at driving site traffic, how are certain apps doing at driving like conversion to brand or a brand lift and things like that. So although we might not be getting as transparent on the media side as much as we would like, it is good that we're getting some of these insights that help us make decisions across the different network apps and publishers and things like that.
We've seen, since August of this year till now, we've seen content level signals, whether we're helping the publisher authenticate it or if it's coming in a self-declared manner, that has close to tripled. So there's definitely a movement of it. A lot of the discussion is, from the buy side, you want better transparency, you want to find inventory, and publishers are saying, well, if I expose that, what do I get in return? And then there's technical challenges of how everything is passed down the ecosystem.
The answer should be you get more money.
You should
expose that.
Yeah, and I think we don't have the slide on it, but you have a great case study on it. You should follow up with David after that. But I think let's just be honest. Like the CTV market, when you go buy programmatically, for those of you that are buyers or those of you that are sellers, it basically functions like if the programmatic in the web market is you would only be able to buy on a domain list, and that's what essentially it looks like right now. Now, crystal ball, like I think what's happening is like between these two markets of the premium and then the fast and programmatic side, you're going to have a lot of the publisher market want to compete, and the best way for them to compete is to provide signals like what David is seeing, so that they can be attributable performance, or this audience that you're specializing in is attributable to this type of content. So that could be really just an opportunity to prove what every publisher salesperson does when they first go meet with David, which is I have a great audience because I have this great content. But they can't prove that in the reporting, so it's left from a you're basically commoditizing the whole set of the the whole CTV market from a publisher standpoint when you don't do this. So, but it is, back to my original point, it is growing. There's about a 3x increase in the type of authenticated signal that's coming out. And that's important, but there's still a lot of room to grow yet.
Yeah, Mario brings up a great point. Nothing drives me crazier than sitting through a great publisher pitch, which is all focused on the content, and then the actual inventory strategy on the back end is completely disconnected from what we're being sold, right? Publishers are pushing the great shows that they're producing, but there's no way to actually access reliably and confidently those specific shows. And the case study that Mario referenced, so Spectrum is really the only publisher that consistently shares almost 100% of signals on the show level. So what we did with them, because we knew what shows worked well for us on linear, we essentially created an inclusion list of shows, of those same shows on CTV, and the performance there, that was the best performing tactic by far as conversion rates, CPA, just driving sales. Naturally, because if it performs well in linear, there's really no reason for why it shouldn't perform well in CTV, and those dynamics proved out.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you said earlier, which is super helpful if you get that level of detail, is like, if you see an app partner or a publisher is not performing, it's like, you can start to look at, well, what shows were we actually airing in? And there might be an optimization lever within the deal itself, rather than I'm gonna optimize into another publisher partner or potentially a whole other channel.
Right, so many of my combos of publishers right now are, every publisher wants that performance data back because they don't get it. So the yield teams are sitting in their own little silo, optimizing for themselves while also not factoring in performance or understanding what the media buyers truly are buying, optimizing against buying and what they care about. So I think there is an appetite for that, but it can only be enabled if there's more transparency being given back to the buy side. Because otherwise, all I can tell them is, look, it just didn't perform. I can't tell you why it didn't perform, but it just didn't. So now I got to pull my spend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super frustrating. One of the projects that I'm working on, we were talking about this backstage, is a sports docuseries, and working through fast channels and also licensing potential. It's just so disparate, even just from that perspective, in how to get marketers and agencies involved and what's the best route by which to do that. So I hear you on that. Now, we've talked about a lot of the business challenges and nuances as it relates to what we see in the back end and reporting. Let's kind of shift gears. Let's talk about audiences and targeting. So can we just dive into some of those nuances?
Yeah, absolutely. So like when we plan out a linear campaign, right, we'll look at ComScore, we'll look at Nielsen, we'll see what shows, networks, channels over-index for the target audience. You could do that at a more higher level on the app side of things for CTV, but beyond that, that's really the only directional signal we have to plan out content, right? So then you just got to lean on following the audience to wherever they are by activating against addressable segments, which at least I find on CTV, when you're optimizing to really hard performance goals and sales KPIs, the addressable route rarely ladders back into performance because it increases CPMs, closes your potential pool of impressions to the 20 to 30% of people that are actually addressable out there. And you basically write off 60 to 70% of the rest of the market if you're fully only going off of addressable signals. So like there's the audience versus inventory question. And to me, it's not an either or, it's just that the audience buying methodology is a leftover from the legacy ways we bought display and online video. I think we could all debate the health of those channels these days coming off of that type of strategy. But my worry is that we're bringing that methodology into CTV, not appreciating the content element of it, which again is creating a commoditized market, which I truly feel doesn't serve either the buy side or the sell side.
Yeah, we'll always start with like an audience first approach. We want to go to the market, working with our advertisers to understand like what audience, who are they trying to reach, what audience are they trying to reach, and then deploy that in the CTV, whatever tactic and channel, right? So step one for us is like, who do we want to reach? Working with the partners that we think have the best audiences built to help us, or customize and build those types of audiences, and then go to market to try and find them when they're actively streaming content across across a number of different apps, the full ecosystem.
I think from like when you look at the process, right? Like you start with your audience. Obviously, everybody knows this. We're not going to rehash it, right? A lot of that may be on a Netflix or so forth. But I think we have to be really careful as an industry about the audience targeting, especially as it comes into native programmatic traders that are now taking on CTV. And David and I talk about this now. Peter and I talk about this all the time. It's like finding the audience everywhere is obviously a great strategy, but from a buyer perspective, now you have to think about controls over what type of inventory that you're running on. And to feed back into the beginning of what David was showing, it's like if you don't know where you're running, the risk of unsuitable environments become a challenge. And on average, for the work that we do and what we see, you look at any streaming app, and there's about 60% of the inventory in bid calls, open market bid calls, that have zero signal. Another 20% have one single genre. So from that perspective, you have to think about, we're in the Go Addressable Brand Safety Conference. We made a lot of mistakes early on in this industry about the type of audience targeting and the type of risks that are associated with it. If you're going to go down that route, you need to think about the publishing relationships, the inventory quality, and work with partners that can help you do that. That's something I don't think a lot of people are thinking about when you go into the non-programmatic guaranteed upfront type buying scenario.
Yeah.
And to Mario's point, the publishers that are sharing back, or the publishers that are not sharing back those signals are the premium ones. So it's the Paramounts, the Disneys, the NBCs of the world. So like what I've seen in other buys is you'll go after our audience targeted approach and you'll way overinvest on the fast and lower quality publishers in the world because they tend to share a bit more of those signals. But then you'll just completely disregard like the apps where 90% of the whole audience is, like the Hulus, Disney Pluses, can be found, right? You really don't need more than 10 apps on a CTV buy, I'd say. But if you're going to go fully the audience route, then you're going to need more scale because if you're just trying to buy that audience approach on the premium apps, you're not going to scale.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I feel like we don't always see like as much trouble with scaling, but I do think it's trouble with optimizing is what we see. Like some of these premium apps we see it as not performing. I don't know, Peacock seems to be, or it's not really always sold as just Peacock. It's sold as a bundled deal. So like Peacock AX or whatever. It's not performing, so we're just going to cut it. And getting an understanding of why, because it could be because of particular shows and content that like we're bundled together within this, which is across, if NBC's got availability on FAST, maybe we're running mostly on FAST and we're not actually running in Peacock, right? Maybe there are levers within that deal that can be pulled. That's hard to figure out how to pull it. Because we're not getting those content level signals.
Right, and transparency has enabled the linear market historically to be a market that functions on supply and demand economics, right? Higher in-demand content will generate a higher cost. With CTV, where everything is commoditized and you're just buying one blanket CPM, that supply and demand economics are completely skewed, right? So like there's fear on the yield team side of things that people will cherry pick and that will hurt their scale. But ultimately what I believe is like if people know what shows perform, they'll be willing to pay a higher price for those.
Yeah,
and then the market will resolve itself.
There's ways to protect that you're not passing a specific show title. And maybe you do it on reporting, but from a targeting standpoint, that's a very real thing for a publisher. So, but for the most part, like if you can't attribute the audience and the quality and the performance to the media that you're selling,
Yeah.
I
mean, the bundle packages have been a point of contention for many, and but that goes back to the lack of transparency. Right. So if you're not unpacking that, like where do you go? And then unfortunately, I'm sure you have to pull budget, right? If you're not getting that level of detail.
Well, I think just
like
to make
level
one
of performance, right?
If you're looking at performance.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think there's a mix of publishers and buyers and platforms in the room. It's like, well, okay, so what do I do? Like we're just we know that this is a problem, and I think you got to work really closely with like if you're a publisher, you got to work really closely with your buying partners. But even more importantly, you got to work really closely with your platforms, whether it's the SSP or the DSP. Like I know for a fact, given the position that we sit in with our platforms, you talk to all the publishers and they're like, oh, well, we are passing content signals. And we're like, no, you're not. And they're like, we show them the data. We're like, 60% is not making its way. It's like, well, this is my SSP report and I got 100% content signal on it. It's like, well, the DSP isn't doing anything with it. And so like, transparently, we have services that help in this area. But I think one of the things that is if you're a publisher, you got to think about the strategy of monetization. You have your direct stuff, and then you have your, like, how are you going to handle the 1,000 or the million advertisers that are going to come into the CTV market? You're not going to hire 1,000 salespeople, right? So you have to develop ways to, to monetize within reason. And from the buy side, you have to structure what type of investment. I mean, I hear the upfronts. I mean, you probably know this better than I do. I think 50% of the requests now are like, this is my upfront, but 50% I need to be unbiddable.
Right.
That's a whole new set of challenges for the market and opportunity.
Yeah. But,
so if we think about, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we've seen a lot of progress with the publishers and partners allowing us to work that way, which is great. Like, that's the kind of flexibility we want, which I think was one of the things we wanted to talk about, too, which is good.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I kind of want to pick at things a little bit in terms of content signals. Like, I know, just pick at it. Like, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? Which content signals would you solve for? Which signals would you really solve for if you could just activate, I don't know, in the next couple of years?
I mean, for us, I think it would go back to trying to understand, why things aren't performing and why they are. So it would be like, what shows within the bundled deals, what apps are we landing in? Is it a fast app? Is it their direct-to-consumer app? Is it some sort of like TV Everywhere app, Is it actually like Spectrum's app, right? Like, so if we can get that level of detail, then we can start to see, well, maybe it's performing really well because it's on a vMVPD, like a Spectrum or a DirecTV Stream or a Sling, and that audience is like reacting better to that. Or maybe it's performing much better because it's on like the direct-to-consumer app, like it's performing really well on Peacock or Paramount Plus or things like that. So that level, and then a step further would be nice to know, okay, well, what shows did we actually run in within this, and what was the end performance of that? It would just help us quantify what's working and what's not much better than like the actual deal itself.
I mean, the TV market has forever functioned on genres, subgenres, and sub-subgenres, and advisories, warnings, and do not air lists, and everything else. Like, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. Like we could just start with that. Like, just start with the way that, like, you ask any advertiser or agency person that's in here, and you ask them about CTV investment, like, what would you want to be similar to linear, and they'll tell you in a heartbeat. So I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel yet. Right? We could talk about scene level stuff and all that other stuff. We could talk about that at the next Brand Safety Summit if Rob invites us back after this crazy panel. But again, people don't know where they're running. So I think if you just give some base level of passing a simple signal, it could start with genre and advisories and warnings because of the brand suitability risk. I think those are really important because, again, if you ask an advertiser what's preventing you from more CTV investment, in so many words, they will tell you confidence of adjacency, and it's a pretty simple thing. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I also it's hard not to play through content distribution strategies coming from my consultancy in sports marketing. How many people and publishers here and DSPs are thinking about adopting content. So if we have the right brands and investments and teams demanding certain shows because they got that level of reporting, it could really change the game there. So, if you were to say the holy, actually, is this a true statement? Is the holy grail the difference between content viewing and performance?
I think it should be table stakes, not holy grail. One, I think the whole brand safety conversation in relation to CTV right now is a bit of a red herring because, again, you can't have brand safety if you don't know where you're running, and you can't validate that. So, like, let's just start by setting up this channel for long-term success. And in my opinion, it will not be set up in the most healthy way until we have that base level transparency, which we get on linear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree in the sense that like it would be good to start to get that more granular level reporting as much as possible. We get levels of it, you know, and like it's not like it's completely opaque. Like if you work directly with the publishers, you can start to understand where you're running. It's just like it's not coming directly through these bid streams. We get genre level through the platform, you know, through the DSPs. We can pull some of that level reporting, but it's just not everything, right? Like you guys pulled up on the slide. There's gaps. So getting closer, you know, for us, right? When we think about it, from the way we strategize and go to market, it would just be helpful to know what's working and what's not, so we can make those decisions and help advertisers understand what's working for them.
Yeah.
Audience plus environment, you combine those two, you will have success. Audience without environment, I've seen time again, just been in this industry, and at Pier 39 for close to 7 years now. We know it works. So if you don't have one or the other, it's a little, you can't just do a contextual or genre target without having the audience, right? So if you do both, that's where I think that's where the base of the industry needs to focus over the next year.
Yeah, I like to see the announcement that you'd had with Amazon. That looked really interesting.
Yeah, we're excited about Amazon. Thank you for the plug.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it a commercial because we're over time, and I want Rob to invite me back next week.
Oh yeah. Where is he? Over there. Okay, cool. Looking forward to 2026. Leave the audience with one key action item that you think that they can take.
Push your publishers to be more transparent. That's the only way it's going to happen, when the media buying side makes enough noise for them to actually move the needle and do something about it.
I think we'll continue to see, you know, we're going to continue to see like budget and strategies flow into the CTV channel. So I would say it's important for publishers to think about flexibility. You know, let us start to activate certain deals that maybe we can't currently do. Maybe make live sports more available via PMP, make tentpoles more available via PG and PMP to try and help advertisers activate the way that they feel is best for them, that best suits their needs.
If you're a publisher in the room and you want to know what your inventory looks like to the buyer side, find me out there. The other thing I would say, if you're on the buy side, I would definitely push on the platforms to enable their macros for content level reporting signals, because there are signals. You know, like just from our data, we're seeing 300 million bid requests like daily now. I mean, it's totally spikes when it's the All-Star game or, you know, live sports. Yeah, but it's out there. So if you're on the buy side, you should be able to see how that's tracking across your plan. And it's something, you know, we help measure. So